Seven Blue Skies Channel presents Paranormal, Book 4, Part 2, a continuation, Legend of the Cannibal by Dr. Ahmed Khalid Tawfiq. Alexandria, January 7th, 1965. Dear Rifat, you will receive this letter at least 10 days after the New Year, proving once more that you are more courteous, friendly, and sensitive than me. Thank you for the nice card and long letter you wrote. 4 full pages on nice stationery, which shows a level of endearment I hope continues for a long time. You told your story and then asked me at the end if I still have doubts. Of course I have doubts. Really, your logic and way of stating the events reflect an unprecedented stupidity the likes of which I rarely see. 1. You say he visited you after midnight and roamed around in your flat without permission. Then you call him polite, steady, and calm. 2. You say he was hungry, and then he vomits having just tasted a piece of cake. 3. He says he's about to have his dinner, yet, in spite of that, his hair and clothes are all wet, which means he had just come in from the street. When you come back home on a rainy day, you first take off your coat, dry your hair, and then you go into the kitchen and start looking for something to eat, prep everything, and then at least half an hour later realize you don't have spices and think of borrowing them from the neighbors. Usually, this doesn't happen. 4. Plus, what kind of stomach can handle spices before sleep and can't take an innocent piece of cake? 5. And what kind of office job in the Marines can make one's hands so rough? 6. Also, you have missed something very important, and what I know of you is that you are observant. How could his clothes be so wet when it hadn't rained in any part of Egypt on the night of December 31st? I had read the weather bulletin carefully, and it didn't rain here in Alex on that day. I even called and asked my brother, who lives in Cairo, so where did this fellow come from with all the rain? You'll tell me my logic is circular, and that I doubted in point 6 above one of the fundamentals and point 3. Well, I don't care about such things and don't have time for it. I just ask that you be careful. Don't be overly trusting of friendly people who visit at night. I have a lot of miserable stories that resemble yours, and their endings are inevitably set in the courts or on the coroner's table. As for Maggie, my deepest condolences for your negativity and hesitation, and your emotions which made you lose the first and last love of your life. So now, try to forget that smart, kind, energetic girl. Try to find a wife. I have one for you. Not smart, not kind or energetic, but she would be a wife. She is Siham's sister, a teacher. She's 29 and just got out of a failed relationship, by no fault of her own. Most important is that I see you and Alex to arrange a meeting between you two at my home. Don't be surprised. These traditional marriages always work out. Plus, you're no better than me, and that's how I got married. With my greetings and many thanks, your brother, Adil Tawfiq. 3. More riddles. Cairo, January 11th, 1965. Dear Adil, I write to you this letter while feeling there are strange things happening in my next-door neighbor's apartment. This morning I was going to the university as usual, and I got into my car and was starting the engine when I was surprised by our neighbor, Mr. Zachariah, the sociology professor, rushing over to catch up with me, then bending down over my window to scold me. For what? I asked him. For using your mallet, banging it all night while we tried to sleep. I forgot to tell you that Mr. Zachariah lives on the floor below mine, and my relationship with him is basically non-existent, because he thinks a bachelor living alone is, without a doubt, a jerk with whom it is better not to mingle. And he totally expects that I will bring shame to our building some day, which is an uncalled-for certainty. Me, who never drank in my life. Well, I do smoke, and I wish I didn't, and entered into senior citizenship a year ago. Anyway, I told him that I hadn't used a mallet and have no reason to do so, as my food is either prepackaged or coming from my village or from a nearby restaurant. Walking away annoyed, he commented, "Then it's the other damned one." And of course by that he means Azit, which is what I thought, though at first I didn't realize what he meant by the other damned one. It was me, for sure, obviously. So, this kid spends his night hitting something on the floor. When he asked for spices after midnight, I didn't think he was so passionate about cooking as to bang a meat mallet in the early hours of dawn. But I haven't heard him do so before, otherwise I would have told you. As a simple explanation, I could just say he's a weirdo. But no, there's a secret, deeper and more dangerous than all of this. Yesterday, the doorman, Shaban, came to me carrying a piece of bone and said, "Someone is throwing bones in the air shaft of the building." And since the ventilation shaft is common with the adjacent building, I didn't find that enough proof to blame the residents of our building. While waving the bone in my face, he wanted a vow from me to stop throwing bones to the bottom of the shaft, if I was the caveman who did such a thing. It was a shoulder bone, clean, white, and the story could have ended there, except that I understand anatomy quite well and know for sure that this bone doesn't resemble that of a cow, buffalo, sheep, or any other mammal I know, except for... And thus I asked him for the rest of the bone and gave him a 25p tip, and I will never forget the look he gave me, which clearly said, "Here's another psycho." Then he went down the stairs and came back breathless after minutes, with every bone he found wrapped in an old newspaper. I took the bones and carried them to my office, and by the light of the lamp I started checking them. There was a shoulder bone, as I described. Then there were smaller bones which seemed to be from a hand, and some vertebrae, 2 scapulae, some ribs, and the broken head of a femur. It was clear that the bones were not all from the same being, because they varied in age based on the dryness of the vertebrae and the attachments of the limb bones. Pathologists nowadays are using a method called immune residues to discern human bones from animal bones, and I, of course, don't have this method here at home, but have a good amount of experience. And I have my eyes. May my arm be cut off if these were not human bones. Lighting a cigarette, I regarded the smoke refracting through the lamplight as I contemplated. If these were human bones, what does that mean? I know there is a medical student in the adjacent building, but what would compel him to throw bones down the ventilation shaft? The skeletons on which medical students study are never thrown into garbage bins. All of the students lend them to each other or sell them when finished, and so on. The bones move from one hand to another until they decay altogether or someone buries them. Well then, this is an unacceptable possibility. And the second possibility, that someone fell down the stairs and his body decomposed there, is also rejected because the air shaft is not a secluded place to that extent. And surely it's not a cave in South Africa or a tomb in the Valley of the Kings. The third possibility is that someone murdered someone in one of the 2 buildings and threw the bones into the air shaft, which is a silly possibility because, for the same reasons previously mentioned, this is not the best place to hide a corpse. In addition, the bones were from multiple people, and I have not found a single large weight-bearing bone like the femur or humerus which would prove the last 2 theories. And I can hear you saying there is a fourth possibility, that I have no clue about anything and that the bones are simply animal bones, which is a respectable possibility and not so bad, but I still don't favor it. I wonder what you make of this riddle. Do you think I should call the police about this? Undoubtedly, they have better methods than me for knowing who threw these bones, for what reason, and where he got them. But, as usual, I have given you a headache with this letter, and I think it's about time to finish up. I expect a long letter from you, and, by the way, I'm about to install a telephone, which will give me a break from writing all these letters and you a break from reading them. My phone number is 10827. So don't forget to call me after a month to hear your voice, since my traveling to Alex or your traveling to Cairo is not feasible at the present time. And I thank you. Your brother, Rifat Ismail. Alexandria, January 20th, 1965. Brother Rifat, sorry for my delay in writing a reply to your letter. I was very busy. I have read your letters, and I read that you wanted to call the police. Well, you always forget that I also am a police officer, and therefore I want to see all these bones you mentioned. Please wrap them up properly in paper, and within a few days my respectable colleague Mansour will pass by you. You will find him wearing civilian clothes, and he will have a paper from me. Give him these bones, and he will deliver them to me. Of course, I don't want any blabbering with anyone about this matter. Another very important point. I don't want to scare you, but I checked with staff officers in the Merchant Marines Department on our complicated methods, and the results came back negative, meaning there is no such individual as Marine Officer Azet Sharif on the planet. There isn't, and there won't be. And now you see that the question marks have risen to an extreme, which ties our hands. and there is a favor I hope you can do for me. Will you send something, anything, like a cup, a spoon, with your weirdo neighbor's fingerprints on it? So far, he hasn't done anything dangerous enough to justify our asking for his fingerprints, but I am going to do a little research on him for any criminal history. Therefore, I hope you can help me and give this item wrapped in a handkerchief to Mansour when he comes to you after a few days. Congrats on the telephone, and I hope you answer my suggestion about my wife's sister, because you ignored the whole thing altogether. Adil Tawfiq. Cairo, January 25th, 1965. Brother Adil, I write you this letter at 11 p.m. Mansour just left a few minutes ago carrying what you had asked from me. Yesterday at exactly 10 a.m. the doorbell rang, and I opened it to find Azit standing there on the landing. I greeted him, and he asked me for a cup of water, because the water was out at his apartment, and because someone definitely had interfered with his flat's water meter. Most important is that I was overjoyed and ran to the kitchen, cleaned a cup with my handkerchief properly, and then carried it balanced very carefully on my palm, then put it on a tray and brought it to him. He had entered my apartment, as I have come to expect from him, and stood contemplating my living room decor. I gave him the cup with a shaky hand, and he thanked me and started drinking the water with an actual audible sound. He then returned the cup, thanking me, and I took it by its base with my fingertips, and with a graceful movement so as not to destroy the valuable fingerprints on the cup, I put it on the tray. And here I noticed him looking at my hand with doubt and asking me, "Why are you holding the cup that way?" This was a sudden question, and I was shaken for a moment, but then I got a grip on myself and said, "My hands are dirty with kerosene. I was fixing the heater, and I wouldn't want the smell to stick to the cup." "I understand. It's the life of a bachelor," he said dryly, and then resumed his contemplation of my apartment. Lingering, morbid. And then he greeted me with a nod and left. And the look he threw at the cup before leaving didn't escape me. And now I have his fingerprints as vivid as possible. I had wrapped the cup in a clean handkerchief and gave it to Mansour when he came by today. Of course, I can hear you say now that Azit didn't buy what I said about fixing the heater, because my hands themselves did not smell of kerosene. But I ask, what would you have any other solution? That was the only excuse I could find on the spur of the moment. And now, I hope you will inform me about the results as soon as you know it, and thanks a mil. Your brother, Rifat Ismail. Alexandria, February 2nd, 1965. Brother Rifat, the reason I didn't write to you sooner is because I was busy studying the bones and the fingerprints. The coroner has confirmed that these are human bones. As for the fingerprints, we found no prior known records matching the fingerprints on the cup. And stranger still is that the coroner assures us that these fingerprints and the swirls of lines within them form a very strange pattern which he has never seen before. In addition, the skin of the owner of this hand is very rough, indescribably so, which makes his fingerprints basically useless. And the last thing the coroner said is that these mutilated fingerprints were found on the bones you sent me. 4. Misunderstanding. Detroit, Michigan, January 15th, 1965. To Professor Dr. Mohammed Shaheen. Dear colleague, with the start of a new year, I congratulate you on your new title as Professor of Anthropology in the University of... And I believe they have chosen well, this time at least. We really miss your warm presence, scientific knowledge, and solid opinions amongst ourselves, and especially at this time. I think there is a strong need for your help in one of these complicated scientific problems, and I wish to study it with you. You will remember, of course, our prior discussions on the methods of the cannibal, or human flesh eater, and how I saw it as a characteristic in any primitive society in ancient times, whereas you held it doesn't resemble human nature at all, but rather is more of a product of complicated circumstances and old mythical beliefs. Among them, some primitive societies, when eating human flesh, believed they were thereby improving good attributes and powers and preventing their souls from pursuing them. And you used to base this on complete sections from the book The Golden Bough by Fraser, which speaks of the life and habits of the primitive human. Unfortunately, I don't respect this book much, so comes now the chance to prove which one of us is right. Let me tell you this story as related to me by one of my Egyptian students. It happened 5 years ago in your country. Engineer Shakir is a decent, civilized young man working in one of the petroleum companies. He's 30 years old, unmarried, and has no known relatives. All those who know him say he is religious, well-spoken, and does not engage in gossiping or snitching. And he has gained the satisfaction of his superiors and subordinates, without a doubt. And now, imagine with me. This engineer went on a surveillance tour in the western desert in which he was unaccompanied except for 2 engineers and a pilot. And, of course, with these small single-engine planes, accidents happen a lot. With communications cut off and the rescue teams unsuccessful in finding any trace of the 4 victims, in spite of sending several planes to sweep the area, the company announced that it considered the engineers and the pilot missing. Do you know this kind of story? Then, after 2 months, the unexpected happened. This engineer, Shakir, returned after some gypsies had found him, and he was not in such a bad state of health. As for his colleagues, they had all died, and it was clear that he remained near the wreckage of the plane, waiting desperately for someone to find him. His beard and nails grew longer, and his clothes were raggedy, and the sun had darkened his skin almost to the point of burning. And also, the purulent conjunctivitis had almost destroyed his eyes. But, and I repeat, he was in a decent state of health. Happiness spread amongst his colleagues, and amidst this noise, no one noticed that he hadn't told the details of his life in forced isolation. And this goes against the well-known blabbering nature of humans. Someone like him would have told his story to everybody, and maybe even published in a book he would call 30 Days in a Plane, or The Desert Prisoner, or something along those lines. No one noticed this in the moment of sheer happiness. Also, no one asked himself about the source of nutrition which kept Shakir in such good shape. No one asked about the pilot's and engineer's bones which had been found in the plane, unusually clean and shiny. Up to this point, the story is normal. But then the engineer Shakir began changing. He became more pale, and his face turned more yellow. His lips became firm, cruel, and dry, and he became very thin. He was no longer talkative or jovial, and his colleagues attributed this change to the horrific event that formed an unhealed crack in his character. He quit his job and left his home without saying goodbye to his neighbors. And now come, let's think about what happened. A person doesn't need much brains to know the kind of food he was getting in the desert amongst the corpses of his colleagues. These stories happen a lot, among them the Mexican whose plane had fallen and he ate the stewardess, and the Indonesian who devoured his colleagues in a raft battered by the waves of the Pacific Ocean. Hunger and the survival instinct are partners that only gather on evil. And now you and I both are sure this engineer had eaten human flesh. And the question is, was he able to discontinue this habit which moved inside him this huge primitive legacy which has been covered by civilization? He left his whole environment behind, which means he wanted to go someplace where he could be anonymous. So what's his intention? And what is his lifestyle today? What psychological changes have shown on him? I want you, dear colleague, to find this engineer for me, at any cost, and put him under your microscope because he is an unusual specimen of civilization. And for your further information, he has changed his name to Wagdet or Hamet or something along those lines, and is staying in one of the neighborhoods called Duki. His address is 4A Altera Street. At least that's the address provided me by my Egyptian student, who was a close friend of this engineer, except that their relationship ended in unfortunate circumstances. I hope to receive your reply quickly, and be careful. Sincerely, Professor Dr. R.L. Cathrell.